Up next is Dan Morrin, and he helps people with what he does for a living. He's an attorney, not just any random attorney. You actually help people with disabilities and workman's comp, correct?
Workers' comp.
Workers' comp.
Let's not be gender specific here.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that.
And thank you for having me.
So tell us about your specialty.
Well, I handle workers' compensation for injured and ill workers who become injured and ill because of their work. I also handle Social Security disability claims. And they kind of play into each other. There's a good synergy there because many of the workers who get injured or ill on the job also apply for Social Security.
I know many people that have been on disability over the years, and it's not easy to apply for or to get. You know, there's certain things that you need to do, certain language that you have to have in place, and I guess that's what your specialty is.
Right, yeah. A lot of people are intimidated by the system. Very often I find, believe it or not, there are workers who won't file for workers' comp because they think they're going to get fired. They think that they're going to be subjected to some kind of retaliation by their employer. And what I try to do is I just try to talk to them about being educated about what your rights are. And filing a claim is not a lawsuit. You're not suing your employer. You can stay at your job even though you filed a workers' comp case. But it is something that's real important because people get sick or injured, and if it's a long-term thing, they're going to have to deal with that for a long time.
And it's where does your loyalty lie? You know, your loyalty has to sometimes be to yourself and to your children or your spouse, and you're thinking sometimes, well, if I lose my job, it's all over. But at the same token, people have to pay into that fund, right? So all you're really doing is recouping what's there.
Right. Well, Social Security disability benefits are based upon what you've put in over your lifetime. So the longer you work, the more you have to pay out at Social Security. Workers' comp is really based upon an employer's policy that they paid.
And they have to pay that.
And they have to pay it, right. Although some don't, and that's a problem.
Okay. I guess you go after those people too,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Unfortunately, if an employer doesn't have workers' comp insurance, we can go against them directly. So you don't want to have that situation.
What was the first claim that you took on? Everybody always remembers the first time they try to do something. What was that like for you?
One case I remember from a while back, which I'm kind of proud of, because I got into the paper, which is a very unusual thing.
Is that the one for the Daily News that you got into? Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the guy was a bus driver, and he wore a nice blue uniform with a blue hat, and he had 2 shifts. So his 2 runs were, one was a run down the west side, and then in the afternoon, he'd have to run a bus up the east side of Manhattan. So how did he get from the west side, when his shift ended, to the east side? He took the subway, okay? He's standing on a subway platform in his blue uniform with the hat. You know, he looks very official. Across the platform was a young man who was being beat up by a gang because they wanted his leather jacket. The young man who's being beat up sees my future client, okay? And they see his uniform, and the young man who's being beat up actually runs across the tracks to get away, jumps up to the platform, and runs to my client for protection because he felt that this was a man in a uniform who could protect me. What do you think the bus company did after they found out that he had been injured protecting this young man, okay, from being beat up? He actually put his arms around this young man and protected him from guys who were trying to beat him up.
He got fired.
No.
Oh, what happened?
He filed a workers' comp case because he blew out his shoulder, and they contested the case. And the reason was, they said, you're a bus driver. You were on a subway platform. You weren't working. So what happened was he hired me, and you know, the argument basically was the reason that he got hurt was his uniform. It's a work-related injury. See, what I have to do is I have to prove that work caused the injury.
You have to make sense of it all.
Yeah, it's not so easy sometimes. Somebody comes in with an occupational illness or an injury. They're not sure that they got it from work, but my expertise is to try to draw it out of them. What do you do? How do you use your hands? You know, what do you do with your shoulders, your knees? If you're a tile setter, if you have a knee injury, is that from constantly pounding your knees on the tile? Could be. So anyway, this man who was really a good Samaritan, he was a hero, saved this kid. His own company wouldn't pay him workers' compensation, the bus company, because they said he was on the subway platform. And what happened was we eventually won the case and got him benefits. For some reason, the Daily News called me. he had gotten, yeah, he had gotten an award from the mayor for being a good Samaritan. So I guess the angle there was, Good Samaritan, you know, receives award, but doesn't receive any workers' comp. But I was able to get him some.
Congrats. Now, do you ever have somebody coming in and you know that they're just wanting some money and they don't deserve it?
Yeah.
How do you politely turn them away and say, I'm sorry, but I don't believe my firm is for you?
Yeah, I mean, that does happen. And in fact, I can never charge a fee to anyone for seeing me. In fact, I can never receive a fee from anyone who comes in my office. The only way I get paid is if I win the case. So I do have to be careful about the cases that I take. There are people who are out there to game the system. I think a workers' comp attorney who's been experienced like me, we kind of know who they are.
And that's kind of the difference. So you want to, if you do feel like you may have a legitimate reason to see someone like you, how can they reach out to you?
Right. Well, they can call my office, or they can go to my website, and you know, they can click, and I can definitely answer any questions that anyone has. mydisabilityatty.com.
Okay.
And you know, I'm very happy to answer questions. When people ask me questions, I don't expect that I'm necessarily going to represent them. If you have a question about disability or workers' comp, just give me a call. I'm always happy to talk. I like to talk about it.
Well, it's very kind of you to offer that service. And if you think that you need an attorney, such as Dan, you could reach him at liveituptvshow.com, and we'll have a link to his site, or you can link to him directly. Thank you so much. Those are excellent tips.